Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Special guest today, I am joined by Usman Khan of Apex C3. Usman, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to see you, and in such interesting surrounds as well behind us, where people are working in lounge. I think it's the first one we've done in a garage, but as all good businesses start from a garage in tech, don't they? So we're in good company. Usman, it's wonderful to see you again after a little while, and you're doing some really exciting stuff. I've been watching it on LinkedIn. You're in a mightily interesting area. But for those of you who haven't seen Usman for a little bit, tell us a little bit about what's going on and what your new project's all about.
No, thank you, and likewise, Toby. Great to connect again. It's been some time. So Apex C3, it's a company we started in the summer of 2019. Before that, I was running Alchemy, which was a global bond information network with Stu Taylor, Michael Schmidt, Rob Howes, Scott Eaton, Glenn Moore. And we ran that for about 7 years, and I decided that I would remain a shareholder and strategic advisor and set up Apex C3. And really the aim of Apex C3 is to offer retail and institutional traders, quants, research analysts, a multi-asset analytics platform. So the idea is that we consume data from multiple data sources, exchanges, news sites, social media sites, bring it all into one place, normalize it, structure it, and then generate insights off it, and then distribute those insights to that user base, right? So that is our main aim. It's all cloud-based, and we're in beta at the moment. We spent the summer in stealth building it, and then we launched it in February this year. We have over 1,000 traders using the platform now. Wow. And so it's been a very good beta, and we're just iterating development with our trading community at the moment.
So I think it's for a guy who had such success so quickly with your former incarnation, and I think Alchemy was the sort of darling, wasn't it, of fast growth tech at that sort of stage. Mm-hmm. Coming into this again, you seem to have the magic touch of finding exactly the right sort of market, and if you're talking about data analytics and everything, one of my sweet spots, one of the things I'm sort of fascinated about at the moment, you couldn't have been launching into a more app market with so much complexity that's going on, particularly around buy-side systems at the moment and such like, and so many things talking to each other. Perfect timing on that side in terms of market, and then you're putting a startup together in one of the most difficult times in economic history. Tell us a little bit about how that's impacted you.
Sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, challenging times, and obviously we empathize with everyone going through this period, and shout out to our NHS workers who are absolutely smashing it for all of us at the moment. We're sitting here working in our offices, garages, but they're out there on the front line, so big kudos to them. Absolutely, it's been challenging. So our plan was to launch our beta and start monetizing these last couple of months. That was actually our plan. But when we look at our user base, firstly, our user base has been affected by the negative markets in terms of trading activity. Most people are spending money on either Netflix, Apple TV, or groceries, right? And so adding another charge to the table to actually use our premium features was something that we decided we would delay purely because of the Corona crisis. So we've now delayed our monetization strategy by a few months. So that's how we've been specifically impacted, but from a business point of view. But it's still manageable. So our users are thankful for the fact that we're willing to extend our beta period longer. In terms of office, obviously now we're out of the office. We're working remotely. I'm an office person. I like being in the office. Talking to the team, working with the team, fixing bugs directly on the screen. But so we've had to adjust to remote working. But as a software development company, we're able to still continue productively. All the tools are available to us to carry on with agile development remotely, but it did require some adjustment. Yeah,
it's been a sort of common theme that there's I think financial technology companies are sort of almost geared up for to this, and the show can go on, but it's just whether it's optimum show, isn't it? That's the that's the piece for it. And there'll be some people there who are happier than ever without the commute, without being in an office, and being able to really get their head down and focus on it. We've got so many different tools with Zoom and Slack and everything that people are using to be able to communicate really well. But then there's also just this irreplaceable human element of everything, isn't there? And people like you and me will be going up the walls sometimes and wishing that we could be in and amongst the team, and other people are in blissful isolation at the same sort of stage. It's a question I've been asking a lot of people recently about what it looks like moving forward. Do you think this will be a seismic change? Do you think there'll be massive differences to the way that you and your team works, and will there be more working from home, or will there be more will everything return to normal, or will it be completely different for you guys?
Great questions, and there are definitely questions on many people's minds. In my humble view, I think we're going towards a hybrid situation where there will be a lot more working from home, alongside being in the office. Like in my case, for example, where I like to meet our clients face to face. I like to meet traders and quant analysts and research analysts and our investors, face to face. So for me, having that is really important. I also think there are certain key tasks where you need to be in an office together to work as a team to really hone the solution. So I think an office will be required for that. I think there used to be a lot of skepticism around working from home and the results that could be achieved. But I have a feeling some of that skepticism is now gone because people have been forced to work from home and be productive. And I don't know what the latest stats are around productivity at a macro level, but as far as I can tell, people are still continuing to work. Some people say we're working harder than we were working before, which has been a common feedback that I've received. So I think we're headed towards a hybrid situation. And the software companies that do software development, I think working from home for software tech companies is probably not too bad because, we have tool sets that help you manage your sprint of work. You can continue to be agile and get feedback using online tools from your users. Tech companies probably can remain remote first to a large extent, and now much more so than before. But companies that require handshakes, right? Those companies are going to, they will struggle during this period. And I see those companies going back to the offices well before, like software, fintech type companies. In the future.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely that's the play. There'll be businesses there that've got to move back fast, and there'll be ones there that have adapted and pivoted pretty well. And as I say, look, it's despite everything that's gone on, it's been the right time for it to happen, just to allow business continuity, because it would have been a very different story, some years ago. I'm going to ask you, when I think back to you and the sort of early and rapid growth of Alchemy, a lot of that was built on exactly what you've just been talking about, wasn't it? The camaraderie that I think you guys were famous for culture, and you, Stu, and the team were excellent at creating that sort of real mission and combined purpose and value of it. On a fragmented basis, that can be challenging, right? And particularly as a young business, I mean, it's months old as opposed to years old for you. Trying to build that sort of shared purpose must be difficult at the moment. How are you managing that? Great
question. So, again, we instilled that culture into the team from the get-go, right? So well before Corona, we'd established that camaraderie and that culture within the team. And the guys, although let's just say being at home isn't necessarily easy when you're surrounded by the same four walls every day, waking up. The guys are still very positive. The energy is still there. And we're all working tight as a tight-knit circle. Where I think it's more difficult is meeting people, meeting clients, meeting potential investors. That's the difficult part now, because you literally can't. Like, it's very difficult to meet at the moment, right? And so that's in Alchemy days, we were able to go and meet the investors. We were able to go meet clients, shake hands, share the vision in person. Look eye to eye, right? Get deals done. That human element is so critical to those elements with respect to making deals happen and talking to investors and partnering, right? And so Zoom to some extent is helping, but what I'm finding is people who I'd met a few months back, they're the ones where the discussions are very fruitful. People who I'm meeting now for the first time on Zoom, right? The kind of feedback I get is, okay, look, it's going to be great when we can meet in person. Right. And so you can see that the whole meeting in person and shaking someone's hand to get deals done is a requirement, right? And so that I'm still trying to figure out. I'm still learning, right? How do you close deals, new deals, remotely?
Everyone is
remotely, right? And so I think a lot of it will come down to being able to effectively use virtual presentations, virtual tools, right? That just help you project your image more clearly. Like that's one factor that I think is of importance to really try and get that same culture of values across. And secondly, you know, like if there are ways to actually meet, even using social distancing measures, right, you know, in place, I recommend, I encourage that. Like for me, the minute the government turns around and says, hey, you know, you guys can now have your meetings, social distancing applied in the city, you know, I'm just waiting for Boris to say that, right, or along those lines, so that we can start to do that safely, obviously, right? So, you know, for me, it's a combination of virtual and being able to present things in a way that are super clear and powerful, but then literally getting straight back, you know, into the city the minute.
I think that's a really interesting point you make, because there's been there's been a lot that's been given and a lot that's been taken away from, you know, from all this. But I think, you know, the ability for people to utilize technology to be really super clear on what they're doing and to make those connections. There is a bottleneck that's appearing that in my opinion will be a huge release at some sort of stage. And look, there's no one knows. You know, you speak to any sort of economist, and you're going to get a different view from each one of them about what's going to happen. No one knows. This is, I guess, the whole nature of being unprecedented, is that there's nothing that to give us a guideline of what's going to happen, and you know, whether someone's going to say we're going to have a V shape or an L shape or whatever it might be. No one's any the wiser. But I do get the feeling that there's a genuine desire for people to want to keep pressing ahead. There's an ambition that's being born through this, and there's a lot of people who have been meeting through all these sort of means to keep the continuity going over the last couple of months. That mean that I think there's going to be something fairly spectacular that happens over the and I love this as well. I love the whole concept of people appearing. I've had people appearing in the back, dogs, kids, wives. They're all going through in all of these. And it keeps you focused.
I'm so okay. He's there again.
The concentration test of it all. But I think going back to what you're saying, absolutely correct. I think, you know, the sooner that we can get back and to start having, you know, the right kind of conversations in the best possible way is it's going to be great, and there's going to be some really interesting things that happen from it. In terms of, it's a question I've been asking a lot because I'm really fascinated by it. And my sort of value set is all around looking at negatives and turning them into positives. I think, you know, I've said this a few times now, that turn on the news, you've got all the negatives you need. So let's look at the positives through this particular show. Tell us a little bit about what you think will change for the best. What do you think is going to be some of the real wins that come out of this time?
You know, I look at this from two perspectives: one, personal and business, right? So from a purely personal perspective, I'd say, you know, spending more time with the kids at home. But even though, you know, you're in your office and you're really focused, but the fact that the kids can literally just come in and sit with you, right, while you're working, actually, I'm finding that very valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually being around and just helping them with their studies as well, and just having fun with them, more fun with them than maybe, you know, before, because, you know, you get home from the office, right, you know, you have dinner and pretty much it's their bedtime. Right? Whereas now, at least throughout the day, you just get to spend more time with them. So that's a positive.
Absolutely. Apart from the studies bit, I've been leaving that to my wife. Throw that one right over the fence.
No, totally. I've been trying to delegate. So, you know, I'd say that's a positive. And also, I feel that you have a bit more time to yourself to self-reflect. You know what I mean? So, like, you know, the fact that you're not commuting and you're not rushing to things, right? You know, you're not going meeting after meeting, even though you can have calls after calls. But now when literally you could spend 10, 20 minutes getting to a meeting, right? Half an hour leaving the meeting, right? And then you're always thinking about the next one. Now you've got time in between to actually reflect a little bit, right? A little bit more, and just generally reflect about everything. So I think that reflection time is a benefit, I'd say. And then, you know, but from a business perspective, you know, the ability, what we've learned from this whole episode is that we can work remotely. Right, that we can actually continue to deliver product remotely, right? And that was a test, right? So BCP plans, even small firms like us have BCP plans, right? You know, enacting those BCP plans, seeing them work, right? That's actually quite a good positive, right? So should this situation arise again, you know, we know that we have a good plan that can work. And I'm sure many businesses are in that position. So for me, that's a positive. And then the other positive is the amount of people who've reached out to me saying, hey, you're a small business, do you need any help? Right? Are you okay? Like, you know, is everything okay? Right? You know, we don't necessarily share the innards of our business in terms of, you know, how the finances are, etc. We're in a good place. We have plenty of runway. So we're pretty good, but people have reached out. And that's quite nice. That's actually a really nice element to all of this, right? People who I've not spoken to for many years actually reached out, and I felt guilty for not reaching out to them.
Well, I'm sure no one minded.
Yeah, and so that's quite a positive, I felt, from this as well.
Yeah, I think there's some great stuff on that, and I think the connections and sort of the ability to reconnect with so many people has been a real bonus point to it. It's interesting to me about you mentioned there the financing and such like, and it's been and for a lot of people it's been pretty tough running a startup in this, and I know you've been going through fundraising and such like as well. And you mentioned you alluded to it earlier on, that sort of actually getting to in front of people and being able to physically give them the story and tell them what they're getting involved in. How's that all been? What have been the challenges around that? Because I know there's a number of people that found that really, really hard right now.
Absolutely, and I'm aware of quite a few people as well. No, in general, VCs are still investing in companies. There's a number of stories. There's a number of people I know who have received investment during this period. As you know, the government set up the Future Fund, and literally it's oversubscribed. I think about 450 million pounds of investment the government has matched. Yeah, right? Just literally in the last 2 days, right? Which clearly shows that there is appetite to invest in companies. Yeah. But what I think is happening is VCs are shoring up their existing portfolio companies, as they should. That's their objective, is to focus on their portfolio companies, but then also look at new companies. So I am seeing that. However, I would say be prepared to negotiate valuation, right? So we're at a time where we're in a downturn, so that the negotiations around valuation will be hard, won't be easy. Yeah. So be prepared for that. Secondly, you've got to have a really good, clear pitch, like really honed, and really know the value proposition, the unique differentiation. All these things have to be really clearly defined, right? To really stick out when you're now pitching to investors, because it's tight for everyone, including investors. Remember, investors they raise funds from their investors, and ultimately they're trying to generate a return for their investors, and maybe the appetite for risk is now a bit more reduced than what it used to be. Right. As a result of that, it means that they're going to focus on companies that have a very clear value proposition. And yes, they're still risky, but maybe less risky, right? And so all that needs to be taken into account. But then, my humble advice, really is humble advice, is, and we've been quite lucky to benefit from this strategy, is stay lean, right, as much as possible. For as a startup, right, really look at your costs, right, cut any fat that isn't needed. Figure out all the schemes the government offers, right? Tap into those schemes as needed, and just figure out how to preserve cash, right? So that you can just increase your runway, right? As a company. That's not easy to do, but there are always mechanisms in one's control to prolong your runway. And that before saying, hey, it's time to end because Corona has killed the business. I would still definitely urge people to look inwards, right, and see what we can do to prolong runway. So those are I would say those are the main challenges businesses are facing. VCs who are still investing, but maybe a little bit more risk averse, and obviously startups who raised a little bit or maybe not raised anything and now are looking to raise, watching their burn is however small it may be.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting early on how aggressive Sequoia went in some of their messaging and such like, which sort of created a sort of ripple effect, didn't it, everywhere else? And I think that sort of, I've heard people go from VC funding over the next quarter being decimated through to other stories where there's a little bit more ambition. A good time for a VC to, for exactly the reasons you've just been talking about, a good time for a VC to get involved and get to the negotiating table. If you touched on it there, and I think that particularly with the success that you've had in your career with putting attractive propositions in front of investors, you've touched on it a little bit there. But tell us a clear pitch. What does a great pitch look like at the moment for an investor?
Yeah, sure. And again, this is my humble opinions.
Yes,
and obviously,
but backed up at the same time with some track record. So
no. For sure. So, the key things for me, and in my humble experience of pitching, number one, what is the problem, right, that you're solving? Right? Can it be clearly articulated, right? And if you can't articulate your problem, like in 1 or 2 sentences that you're trying to solve, right, then it's not clearly articulated, right? And there's no more to it. What is the market opportunity, right? What is the size of the market that is affected by that problem, right?
Yeah.
And can that be clearly defined, right? And then 3, what is your solution? And again, you should be able to articulate your solution in a couple of sentences that very clearly identifies that, right? Then the nature of your solution, you need to go into how is it monetizable, right? Because a lot of people forget that you've got to make money in the end of the day, right? The investor's putting money in to get a return, right? Not to continuously, invest in the company, from literally fund after fund, right? Funding raise after fundraise. Ultimately, they want to make money, right? So
that is a simple bit of advice that's probably one of the most important ones that comes alongside it as well, right?
Yeah. So what is your business model, right? The solution that you're solving, right? What is the business model? Is it a subscription model, right? Are people going to pay, for advertising? Is it an advertising-based model? What is the model, the business model, right? And then, your team, right? So being able to articulate the strengths of your team and what and why they are the right team, right? To essentially make your business great, right? And then looking at your competitors, right? So showing the investor that you're aware of the competitive landscape, right? That you understand, who is in your space and why you differentiate.
Yeah.
Right? Very clear understanding of that, right? And then sharing your vision, sharing your roadmap, right? Where are we headed? So sorry, the ice cream van in the background.
I was just going to say, that sounds like an ice cream van. I've suddenly got myself needing a Mr. Whippy pretty quickly.
And so, clear differentiation and your roadmap, right? So then articulating where you're headed, right? And then a clear understanding of your valuation and why you're valued at where you are, right? You don't necessarily mention your valuation in the pitch deck, but you need to give some insight, right, into what is valuable about your company today, right? Because when you come to negotiate with the VC, they will value your company, and they're only going to value it based on the information you provide, right? So it's important to ensure that So for example, like if your business is already live with a product, I'm talking from a technology business where it's a website or it's some kind of product, a mobile app or a product, a desktop app, right? How many users does it have? How engaged are those users, right? What is your retention rate, right? Simple KPIs that the VC could look at and actually analyze, right? And then make a judgment, right, on whether this is a business. And then finally, how do you scale your revenues? So although we're starting, you might be starting off in a small sector, solving a small problem, but what is the potential for growth, right? And actually highlighting that clearly. Those, I would say, are the core elements of getting a pitch.
I'm fascinated in it because I've been sort of speaking to a couple of, in fact, there's as we talk, I've just had this
there you go.
bought recently, so a very, very good read that sort of echoes. And why I brought it up there is I think it echoes absolutely everything that you were talking about there. It's not a difficult place to be when you think about it and you break it down as clearly as you just have. But the amount of time people go in there and get obsessed about the deep technicalities of how clever the proposition is, rather than actually sort of breaking it down, saying this is, it needs. For me, look, you've got a great track record and doubtless an amazing team behind it. But the ability that I think has always been very, very strong and clear has been to say, look, this is what we do and how it adds value. And I think that's so important, right?
Yeah, I think the other way to think about it is, ask yourself, would I use this platform?
Yeah.
Right. And do you actually use this platform internally? Right. Because it's all well and good creating something for somebody else, but if you don't use it in your daily life or in what you're doing, you as in the user, then why would somebody else use it?
Yeah.
Right. I know it's really simple and it's a very simple way of looking at things, but why do I use Spotify? Because it's easy for me to pick music and find music by playlists. Right. Really easy to do. I might use a booking website like Kayak, right? Why is it? Because, I get access to all kinds of different deals in real simple ways, right? So it's just applying the everyday things that we probably do 100 times a week, right? To your own business, right? And your own proposition. And I think, for me, that's an important element too.
With simplicity at the kernel of everything that's done well with it too. I'm going to keep on that sort of theme of your previous success and how that translates over to this. If you look at the sort of early days of Alchemy and probably economically it was just on an upturn, and now we're at the same sort of phase with an economic downturn of historic reference around it as well. Completely different challenges, but I imagine there's a lot that's similar, and a lot of the lessons you're taking. If you were to say, right, 2 or 3 lessons for that you would have used. You've been very clear there about the sort of cost and everything around there. But if you're saying, look, what are the three things I can look back about what fueled the success of Alchemy that gives you the confidence that you're going to use to fuel the success of Apex and what you're doing at the moment? Tell us what that looks like.
Sure. No, great points. So number one was having a strong team ethic, right?
Yeah.
So firstly, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your strengths, and as a team knowing that, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, that's so critical. And I learned in Alchemy, like, Stu, Michael, Rob, myself, and Scott and Glenn, like we all knew our weaknesses. We all knew our strengths.
Yeah, and very complementary strengths as well, wasn't it, with that team?
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
And just that acknowledgement really helps, right? And so
for
me, it was important in Apex to have partners. So Sharif Al-Borgi, who's my co-founder and CTO, he was actually head of technology at Alchemy. And then my chief product officer is my brother. Right?
Yeah,
so he's been
I kind of guessed that.
Yeah, so he's been a retail trader for about 4 years now. So coming up to 7 years now, right? And so, when I picked the team, for me, it was really important that, firstly, it's tried and tested individuals who have strong relationships. And we all know our weaknesses, we all know our strengths, right? So that was a key element. Alchemy taught me, by having a partnership like that from the beginning, you can do great things with that, right? So that's one of the most important elements. The other element that Alchemy taught me was really be focused on what you're trying to achieve, right? And the audience you're trying to go after. So one could argue it was a benefit and it was a challenge in Alchemy, was that we had access to a whole bunch of different communities in Alchemy. So we had bond trading professionals, we had asset managers, we had banks, we had exchanges. And, Alchemy met the challenge by addressing all three, one at a time, right? But what I learned was you have to be focused on it at one at a time, right? So for me, like saying to myself, okay, I'm going to start Apex C3 and we're going to really focus in on one market to start with, and that's the cryptocurrency market. So we've said to ourselves that we want to go equities, we want to go FX, we want to go bonds, right? But let's start somewhere, which is current millennials are in actually, and using tool sets within. Let's really focus on that market and then expand outwards. So having focus is really, really important. Otherwise, you could try and scattergun and do too much, right? And all of a sudden, you're not accomplishing anything, right? So focus is important. And then the other aspect, as I think I reiterated again, but it's so important, is staying as lean as possible, right? So really watching your cost base, staying lean, and why? Because then whatever you offer, right, whatever you end up offering to your user base, it can be reasonably priced, right?
Yeah.
So you can access more customers as a result, right? So staying lean not only gives you runway and longevity, but it also means that you can price very reasonably for your customer base, so you can attract more and potentially undercut competition as well. Right. And so, we did that in Alchemy for a period of time. We were offering institutional grade software to institutions, in some cases, a fraction of the price compared to others. Right. And it worked. Right. So retail is slightly different, but, you have to be even more competitively priced. But staying lean benefits you on all those fronts. I would say those are my main learnings. The other aspect was, Alchemy was one of the first companies that really embraced cloud in the institutional space. Right, so we went onto Amazon. We were one of the early companies that went onto Amazon and really we blazed the trail on how to use Amazon at an institutional scale. And we worked with many buy-side firms and actually gave them our blueprint, right, on how to do that. And so again, for me, like when I started Apex, and same for Sharif, we were like, we have to be on the cloud, right? We just got to be on the cloud. There's no two words about it.
Be ahead of the technology, isn't it?
Yeah. The other, from a more, I would say, deeper technical perspective was, this goes way back to uni days, but I'm a big proponent of open source technology, right? So, the open source community is a thriving community in the space of software. People just love to sit in their garage in their loft and build message buses, right? For people like me to use, or like in-memory data grids, or like, databases, right? That are completely open source, free to use. You just have to know how to use them. Right, so we leverage that in Alchemy quite a bit, and again, for me in Apex C3, it was really important to
absolutely,
and that just helps you continue to innovate, right? So that you can focus on the innovation that helps solve the problem that users are having, as opposed to actually focusing really building the infrastructure, which others have done. So that was also
on that negative to positive scenario there. I think this if we're looking technically about the advance in FS, that we'll see around cloud adoption and open source technology, and the sort of this has been sort of removing the last taboos that allow it to really expand, I think, within FS. It's been I think that will be a good legacy to come through everything as well.
Good point. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring a sort of last question to you, because it's, as always, these things, when I'm talking to interesting people, suddenly go like that, and it feels like 5 minutes and we spent half an hour on everything. But I think one of the purposes of this has always been to help good businesses get in front of the right people, and I know you're on that sort of fundraise at the moment with everything you've been talking about there. And if someone's watching this right now and think, right, good track record, good business, good team, etc., interesting, topic, the headline about what you're doing in the right area. Tell us quickly why someone should be getting in touch with you and looking to invest.
Great, no, thank you. So Apex E3, we're offering a multi-asset analytics platform to both retail and institutional traders, and literally we built this technology. So if a fund is watching this, or if an asset manager is watching this, if you're interested in consuming large amounts of data and processing that data and generating insights, right, you could literally pick up our version from our lab and put it in your lab, right, and literally get all of that productivity, literally in one hit, right? So if you're interested in doing that, then talk to us. If, for example, you're a day trader and you're trading at home and you're interested in cryptocurrencies at the moment or digital assets, then please use our platform. It's actually live, at beta.apexe3.com. And then if you're interested in equities and FX, then later in the year, going towards next year, we'll be in touch for sure. So I would say those are the three main reasons to use the platform today.
They sound pretty compelling to me, and I hope someone's out there listening, and the phone shouldn't stop ringing off the hook when we put this out now for you. So fingers crossed there's some help there too.
Thank you.
Listen, it is absolutely wonderful to have spent some time with you again, and to hear the story. Gets me as nostalgic in terms of hearing it from when we first met back in the early Alchemy days and everything like that, and what you've achieved. So I've got no doubt you'll have the similar sort of success and take another business through to sterling recognition and everything like that. So I'm really, really excited to watch it. I think it's a fascinating space that you found yourself in again right now. And it's been absolutely lovely to speak to you again. So Usman, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, Toby, and congratulations to you too for putting this together. Harrington Starr is a great firm, one that we've worked with for a very long time. So one that I've known, and one that hopefully we can re-engage with again.
Very, very kind of you. I appreciate that, and look, I'll look forward to that, and anything we can do to support it, it will be great. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much again, and thanks to you all for watching. We'll see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot. Cheers.